Iran is now sending a brutal message in Hormuz, hitting European ships as Trump pushes ahead with what critics call a blood-soaked escalation at sea. As Washington admits to hijacking an Iranian vessel, news breaks that a French cargo ship has come under fire. Even under a so-called truce, a French cargo ship is left damaged in an alleged Iranian attack. Trump's blockade isn't stopping the traffic, but it is turning America's allies' vessels into high-value targets in one of the world's most dangerous waterways. Shocking footage appears to show U.S. forces bombing an Iranian civilian ship and then seizing it, igniting outrage over what Tehran calls open-sea piracy. In swift retaliation, Mojtaba's camp unleashes drone strikes on U.S. warships, signaling that every move against Iran will be answered with immediate firepower. French shipping giant CMA-CGM has confirmed that one of its vessels was directly targeted while sailing through the increasingly volatile Strait of Hormuz. The Everglades container ship came under fire on April 18 as it attempted to transit the strategic waterway during a narrow window when some commercial traffic was still moving. The incident unfolded just as U.S. President Donald Trump claimed that Iranian forces had fired on both French and British ships in the strait, using the episode to highlight what he called Tehran's growing aggression at sea. Maritime authorities later confirmed that, despite the gunfire, none of the crew members on board the Everglades were injured during the shooting incident. However, officials say the vessel did sustain damage to containers while sailing north of Oman, before managing to withdraw from the area. According to initial reports, Iranian forces allegedly fired what they described as warning shots, amid escalating tensions over the U.S. naval blockade imposed on Iran's ports. The French ship is now one of several commercial vessels that have reported coming under gunfire from Iranian units in recent days, as shipping risk in the strait spikes. This latest hit came after Tehran abruptly reversed an earlier announcement that it would reopen the Strait of Hormuz to commercial traffic. Iran has since declared that the renewed closure is a direct response to what it calls the United States' continued piracy-like naval blockade of its ports and coastline. Just a day after the Everglades was struck, U.S. forces seized an Iranian cargo vessel, accusing it of trying to break that blockade, further locking in a dangerous tit-for-tat escalation at sea. As the ceasefire moves closer to expiry, the U.S. has seized an Iranian cargo ship, adding fresh tension to an already volatile situation at sea. President Donald Trump announced that the U.S. military carried out the seizure of the Iranian vessel on April 19. The U.S. military also released footage showing Navy fire hitting the cargo ship while it was out at sea. According to reports, a U.S. missile destroyer intercepted the ship as it allegedly attempted to head toward Iran. The Iran-flagged vessel was said to be traveling toward Bandar Abbas port when it was stopped, according to the U.S. military. U.S. officials say the ship ignored communications for more than 6 hours, which led forces to take action. The destroyer then reportedly ordered the crew to evacuate the engine room before opening fire to disable the vessel. Several shells from the warship's 5-inch Mk-45 gun struck the engine area, leaving the ship immobilized in the water. U.S. troops later boarded the Iranian vessel and took control without meeting any further resistance. The ship is now in U.S. custody following the operation, according to U.S. Central Command. U.S. officials say the vessel was taken into custody after it allegedly tried to break a U.S. blockade on Iranian ports. Iran has strongly condemned the operation as armed piracy and theft, and has vowed retaliation over what it calls a violation of the truce. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "Today, an Iranian-flagged cargo ship named Tuska, nearly 900 feet long and weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier, tried to get past our naval blockade, and it did not go well for them." The U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted the Tuska in the Gulf of Oman, and gave it a fair warning to stop. The Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engineer room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. The Tuska is under U.S. Treasury sanctions because of its prior history of illegal activity. We have full custody of the ship, and are seeing what's on board. Mojtaba's most trusted military forces and Iraq's diplomatic camp are now colliding in a high-stakes power struggle over who really speaks for Iran in the Hormuz crisis. On April 17th, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi posted that the Strait of Hormuz was completely open to commercial traffic, in the middle of delicate ceasefire and nuclear talks. The message was widely seen as a signal of flexibility toward Washington, time to show goodwill as the ceasefire clock ticked down and negotiators weighed next steps. Donald Trump quickly praised the reopening, using it to hint that a broader deal with Tehran might be close and sending global markets a brief shot of optimism. But just hours later, IRGC Navy broadcasts told ships that Hormuz remained closed, warning captains they still needed explicit Iranian permission before entering the strait. One voice on the open radio said, "We will open it by order of Imam Khamenei, not tweets of some idiot," a stinging rebuke clearly aimed at Iraq's announcement. The IRGC-linked Tasnim news agency then blasted the foreign ministry, calling Iraq's tweet bad and incomplete and urging officials to reconsider this communication. Hardline lawmaker Morteza Mahmoudi publicly demanded Iraq's removal, accusing him of gifting lower oil prices to Trump by easing market fears too soon. Mahmoudi argued that by announcing Hormuz open, the foreign minister had eased pressure on Washington and undercut one of Iran's strongest bargaining chips. Reports say the IRGC was furious that Iraqi never coordinated the reopening message with military commanders, seeing it as both a procedural breach and a political misstep. Iran has accused the United States of violating the ceasefire after attacking its cargo vessel in the Gulf of Oman. On April 19th, US forces reportedly fired on the ship, disabling its engine before boarding and seizing it. President Donald Trump later confirmed the seizure, saying the vessel was under US sanctions. In response, Iranian media said drone attacks were launched targeting US warships operating nearby. Iranian officials described the strikes as direct retaliation for what they called a US act of aggression. Iran strongly condemned the incident and warned that further retaliation against the US would follow. Ibrahim Zolfagari said, and I quote, "The aggressor United States violated the ceasefire and committed maritime piracy by firing at an Iranian merchant ship in the waters of the Sea of Oman and landing a number of its terrorist marines on the deck of the vessel, disabling its navigation system. We warn that the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran will soon respond to this armed piracy and retaliation by the US Army," unquote. The operation comes at a time of fragile ceasefire and growing uncertainty over ongoing diplomatic efforts. The US action also came just 2 days before the 2-week ceasefire with Iran was due to end. Meanwhile, Iran says it has no plans yet to attend the next round of talks in Pakistan.